and she works for the conservative cause in Washington, D.C., and the pro-family effort there as well. We wanted to have Sandy on to talk in particular about the immigration bill debate that's going on in Washington, and she joins us now. Sandy, good morning.
Good morning, Tim.
Sandy, this is a very emotional issue for a lot of people because you're talking about people's lives. You know this already, and so we try to be sensitive. I know that good people can even disagree on particulars about the issue. I think everybody wants to have this problem solved in some way that's fair and reasonable and protects our national security and all these things. So, folks, when we talk about this thing, we are not against anybody. Okay, we are we're not, but we have to look at what's in the best interest of the United States of America and law and order and protecting ourselves and our borders and those kinds of things. Any other country does the same thing. So we're just looking at it from that perspective. So, Sandy, I wanted you in particular to talk about, there are 3 or 4 things maybe that you brought to my attention in this immigration bill that's gone from the Senate now over in the House of Representatives to they call it comprehensive immigration reform, that really are worrisome. And so anyway, the floor is yours. Tell our listeners about it.
Well, there are so many things, Tim. And could I just a programming note? I'm having trouble hearing you. You can tell your fine engineer, Adam, who works for me, that the feed from you is really difficult for me to hear. But there are a lot of reasons to object to this, and I think piggybacking on what you just said, Tim, I would try to express to our listening audience and also to people who may be here illegally, and they'll understand this. Immigrants are, for the most part, family people. So they'll understand it when I tell them that when you have a country that you love, it's your family in a different way, but it is nonetheless your family. You have to take care of your family first. You don't feed your neighbor's children before you feed your own. And so I think some of this, just the whole principle of taking care of our own, which is certainly a scriptural principle, is being lost in the shuffle. And what people are claiming is fair to illegal immigrants is not fair necessarily to American citizens. And I would just talk about unemployment. The unemployment rate is still about 7.5, and the biggest numbers, I think, I don't know what the percentage is, but Dan Celia can tell you, but the huge percentage of jobs that have been created in the last few years have been part-time jobs because companies are not able to afford to put people on full-time because of health care, and that's a whole other issue. But the American people are suffering. People are really going into debt. They're losing, we already know they've lost their homes. Now, I think there's a bit of a bubble right now, but I don't see it lasting because the infrastructure, our financial infrastructure, is so fragile. So we are putting ourselves as a nation in tremendous risk. And I could just start off several different things. The immigration bill, as written by the Gang of Eight, would allow in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of low-skilled workers. Now, low-skilled workers, for the most part, don't make a wage that enables them to live without kind of some sort of government assistance. And Heritage did a study on this, and the projected costs over the next 10 years are astronomical. We're talking about in the trillions. I think it was 3 or 4 trillion, because this immigration bill that the Senate passed not only legalizes or gives the legal status to people that are here, it's people that have been deported, it's spouses, it's families, and even though, technically speaking, they are saying they're not rightfully going to be given the same rights and privileges and benefits as citizens, they will in time. They'll get all of it. They'll get Social Security. They'll get Medicare. They'll get all of it. And so that's the basis upon which Heritage factored in those costs. There are so many things, Tim. I think just even the process. We know, this is one of the things that bothers me as much as anything. Our border agents have been so against this, and they have painted a picture of their attempts to enforce the law as it stands on the borders right now and having the federal agencies undermine their authority and put them at risk. We've heard nightmare stories about some of them, how they have been injured in apprehending illegal immigrants who have committed crimes. And they simply say, they just say dreamer. They use the word dreamer. And people that are coming across the border are learning that word because when they say dreamer, automatically the federal government gives them immunity because President Obama did an executive order making a lot of people able to stay into this country. So our border agents have been so against this. And in the process of considering the bill, the border agents were ignored. His name is Chris Kane, who's the head of the Border Agents Union, has gone on Capitol Hill. He tried to do testimony before the Senate. The Gang of Eight didn't want to hear it. And I think the process has been very concerning. I'll stop with that. There's a lot more to say.
Okay. Talking to Sandy Rios. Sandy is on in the morning on AFR Talk. Sandy Rios, you can go to her Facebook page and also, Sandy, have you written on this, or where would you recommend people go to get an analysis on this current immigration bill that you would recommend?
I would recommend anything written by Mark Krikorian, Krikorian. Mark Krikorian, the best stuff on this.
How do you spell his last name?
It's Kirkor, Krikorian, Korian.
Okay, Sandy, what about the border security issue? Because what does the immigration bill that, again, it's passed in the Senate, it's going over to the House of Representatives. John Boehner and his team over there are deciding what to do with it. And I want to ask you, what is there in there currently about border security? Because that's an issue first and foremost for a lot of people. They want to know that whatever we do subsequent to, the border security question, if we can't stop the flow of illegal immigrants into America in the first place, what's the point of? We'll just have more and more and more coming over, and we're not gonna solve this problem.
Let me see if I can make this simple, because it's not easy. Let me just say that the Gang of Eight bill, the reason they were able to pass it in the Senate is because they went through the motions of beefing up the border security part of it. John McCain just said last week that the border security part of the bill was negotiable. He only voted for it because he knew that was the only way some of his friends would support this bill. The thing that is non-negotiable is the legalization. It is very clear, it's not subtle, that the purpose of the Senate bill is to legalize, not to strengthen the border. The concerns that the House has, the legitimate concerns about the bill as it stands to secure the border, is that the people charged with making sure the border is secure is Homeland Security. And Homeland Security right now, under Obama, is not enforcing the current law. Now, I think the thought is that there is no way they will enforce this border. And the punishment, if they don't secure the border in a certain amount of time, is simply that they'll form a committee to review it. That really is, no exaggeration, the promises contained in the Gang of Eight bill. So now the House, the whole process now, I don't know if you want me to explain what's happening.
We got about 2 minutes. About 2 minutes.
All right, I think it's important then. Let me give it a go. The Senate Gang of Eight bill was not sent to the House. It was passed by the Senate, but it was not sent over to the House because by constitutional mandate, the Senate cannot write a bill that levies any spending. So if it were sent to the House would what they call loose with it, which means it would be dead in the water. So now the House, forgive the beeping, the House has to decide if they're going to call for the Senate bill, and Boehner's saying he won't do it. We're going to do our own thing. That's what Eric Cantor says. But here's the problem. We know that Eric Cantor, John Boehner, Kevin McCarthy, the leadership in the Republican Party want this. They want legalization. They want pretty much what the Senate has passed. And so they have, rather than vote on it before the recess, they're doing a bit of a sleight of hand. They don't want congressmen to go into their districts and get the pounding that they've taken in the past whether it's Obamacare or immigration. So the best word on the street here is that they're holding off considering immigration legalization until September, after the town hall meetings are over in August. But then the fear is, and you know what, without going into a procedure, the fear is that John Boehner is going to make it happen procedurally against the will of his own caucus. So people, what we're encouraging is for people to go to their town hall meetings and to let their voice be heard, because right now the huge Obama organization, Organizing for America, they are planning all kinds of protests and rallies at various congressmen during the break.
I want to have you back on about that particular thing. Well, I'll get with you later on when to talk about that. Because the political left is planning on being at these town hall meetings and we'll talk about the purposes of that and maybe how some of our listeners will respond. Our thanks to Sandy Rios for joining us, R-I-O-S. Sandy is a warrior for family values, traditional values, and the family there in Washington, and we're proud to be associated with her. Dr. Ray Pritchard and yours truly, Tim Wildman, will return after the news. Janet Parshall's on deck. We'll talk to her in a few minutes.